I'm teaching a series of lessons which I'm calling Maximize the Moment, and we're into the second phase of that. We began with minimize the moment, now we're talking about master the moment. And this is part 3 of Master the Moment, a lesson I'm calling Deciding to Win. Deciding to win. This is what the motorcycle enthusiast would call living life at full throttle. In other words, you're maximizing it, you're mastering it, you're getting the best effect from life. The truth is, our life consists of decisions we have made. So many people never discover that. They always wonder, why did that happen to me? When the majority of the time, the things that happen to us are not just coincidental. It's not an accident. It's based on decisions we have made. In other words, what I did helped determine what I received. The problem for so many people is they've never taken the time, they've never stopped to consider which decision-making system works best for them. And so in this lesson, I want to focus on how we can make better decisions. Let me call it 10 Commandments for making winning decisions. 10 Commandments for winning decisions. Here's the first one. Control impulsiveness. Oh, everybody has to deal with this at some time in our life because we've all made decisions and we wish we could have taken them back and done something differently. A good principle is never make a permanent decision about a temporary situation. Boy, I look back and I say, I wish I had known that and understood that principle a long time ago, because sometimes I've made permanent decisions when I didn't need to do so. What we need to do is pause, stop, take time to ask some questions. Learn how to ask good questions. Learn to ask questions and learn the virtue of patience. I confess this has been one of my weaknesses, is I have been too impulsive, I've been too impatient. I always felt like we ought to have done it yesterday, and so I'm always pushing, and sometimes because of that, I haven't been wise. So learn to control your impulsiveness. Don't make irrational decisions. Take the time to think them through. And then so it brings me to rule number 2. Beware of blind spots. Now, when we talk about blind spots, this is a term that is used frequently for drivers, and every driver quickly learns there are what they call blind spots in our rearview mirror, things that we cannot see. There are blind spots. The mirror covers certain areas, but it doesn't cover every area. So we've got to learn how to avoid the blind spots. See, blind spots prevent us from accurately assessing our situation. We have partial information, so we think we have enough information to make the decision, and many times it's the blind spots that get us in trouble. See, some people have reached their goals, but they don't know it. They don't realize they've already reached the goal for which they were trying to attain, and because of this, they can never enjoy the moment. That's a mistake, a tragic mistake that so many people, only later do they look back and realize, oh, I missed that. That was a great win, a great victory, but I missed it. Now, let me give you some thoughts here on how to identify blind spots in your life, because we all have to deal with them. You may have noticed in the rearview mirrors on your automobile a little statement at the bottom. It's really hard to read. You have to look closely, but it says, approaching objects may be closer than they appear. That is so wise, and it is so true. You look in the mirror and it looks like they're a long way off, and then you look around you and you realize they're right on your bumper, because the mirror is small, therefore it can't reflect the entire magnitude of the situation. So approaching objects may be closer than they appear. What that means is we always have to be vigilant and aware. It's not enough just to use the mirror. Sometimes you need to turn your head and take a glance backward. The truth is also, God can do the same thing with blessings. God can cause blessings to just seemingly come out of nowhere. Now, in reality, they came from somewhere, but it seems like they come out of nowhere. For instance, in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 2, God speaking of the blessings, and he said, "And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, because you obeyed the voice of the Lord your God." It seems like they come out of nowhere, but because we were making wise decisions, doing the right thing, obeying God, the blessings overtook us. God's blessings come upon our life before we're even aware they're there. Now, let me give you some advice on how to eliminate some of the blind spots in life. How can we get rid of them? First thing, make sure that your emotions are not driving your decisions toward a disaster. Again, that ties in with controlling impulsiveness. You cannot make emotional decisions and make wise decisions. They have to be rational decisions that you have thought through. Don't allow emotions to control you. For instance, one of the emotions that can control us is anger. And you may never have struggled with this, but it's been a problem for me all of my life, that because of my passion, my zeal, if I'm not careful, I go too far. I get into anger. And anger robs us of objectivity. Anger robs us of making wise decisions. So what do we need to do? Allow the moment of anger to pass. Don't hold on to it. Allow it to pass. There's an excellent scripture for this in the book of Ephesians, the 4th chapter, verses 26 and 27, where he says, "Be angry," and then he warns us, "and do not sin." Do not allow the sun to go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil. How do you give place to the devil? By holding on to your anger. If you hold on to your anger, it's going to rob you of objectivity, and you're going to end up making foolish decisions. So learn to eliminate the blind spots in your life. Let me give you the third rule that I learned. The third rule is delegate with confidence. Delegate with confidence. What we need to do, and this is something we have to do the rest of our lives, surround yourself with the most competent, wise people that you can find. Find people that can do things that you cannot do, or they can do them better than you can do them. Surround yourself with those kinds of people, and then empower them. Don't be intimidated by their expertise. That's the kind of advice and counsel you want. It's for somebody that knows something that you do not know. They will help you to make better decisions. Get expert advice before deciding. Now, one of the ways that we get expert advice is find somebody that has done something you want to do, but you've not done it yet, but they have. They're talking from experience, and experience always gives you the edge on making decisions. So surround yourself with these kinds of people. They will help you to make wise decisions. Here's the fourth thing. The fourth rule in making wise, winning decisions is consider all the options. Consider all the options. It's what we say. Get a second opinion. That's good advice. Now, I caution you here that we must take responsibility for the final decision. Don't try to push that on somebody else and say, well, they said that, and you tried to make them make your decisions. No, the responsibility rests with you. So what you need to do is similar to what they talk about in railroad crossings. Stop, look, and listen. Now, then, of course, today's traffic, you don't want to completely come to a dead stop, but at least slow down and look to see what's happening and listen to wise counsel. Then take the time to pray. Well, I learned this from my pastor. It's one of the greatest lessons I ever learned from him was pray about everything. The Bible tells us that. Praying always. Pray without ceasing. He's not just talking. He's giving us wise counsel. Sift the information through your spirit, through your heart, before you make the final determination what needs to be done. And prayer is one of the best ways to do that. As we pray about the information that we have received, God will help us to know the right decision, the wise decision that we need to make. Now, let me talk about a fifth area. The fifth area is simply never go to war where there are no spoils. In other words, what are you fighting about? Why are you so upset about this decision when there is nothing to gain by fighting over this? Learn to choose your battles wisely. You don't have to swing at every pitch. You just wait your turn. Wait your time. Wait for the proper moment. Choose your battles wisely to make sure the prize is worth the price. There's always going to be a cost to everything in life. Even trivia costs something. And it's tragic, but I've seen so many people spend so much time on something that was worthless, something that did not prosper their life, did not help them, it did not improve theirs or anyone's life around them. That was not a good decision. That was not a wise decision. So choose your battles wisely. Or in the military, it's what they speak of generals. Generals weigh what they call acceptable loss before they engage in a fight. In other words, they know going into this battle, somebody's going to get hurt. I remember the story years ago of Napoleon, that he was involved in a large-scale warfare, a big battle, and he knew he was suffering a lot of casualties that day. At the end of the day, his generals came to him and said, "Good news, sir, good news, your troops have prevailed, and they have won the victory." Napoleon looked at his generals and said, "How many soldiers did I lose?" They ducked their heads, and then they confessed, "Half of your army is dead, sir." Napoleon wisely said, "One more such victory will cost me my kingdom." Now, that's what he's saying is, that is not an acceptable loss. Is it worth the fight? If there's not some kind of reward from this, then why are we fighting over it in the first place? Make sure that you choose the right battles before you engage in the fight. Now, let me give you a sixth principle I see here. The sixth principle is be accurately informed. Be accurately informed. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about getting the best advice you can, surrounding yourself by wise people. But what I'm simply saying is be sure that you get all the available facts before you make your decision. Now, it is impossible to get 100% of the facts. It's impossible. That's why Jesus calls us to live by faith. By living by faith, in other words, there's always the uncertainty of the unknown factor. But you want to reduce that as much as you possibly can. It's dangerous for us to make a decision when we've only got, let's say, 25% of the information that we really need. That means 3 times out of 4, you're going to be making the wrong decision. 50-50. That's not too good a ratio, because that means you have as big a chance of making a bad decision as you do of making a good decision. A rule of thumb is about 80%. If you can get 80%, you're pretty confident. You're pretty sure this is the right thing that you need to do. But you need to get the best information you can. It's what they call conjecture leads to crisis. If you're making decisions without good information, you're not going to make good decisions. Learn patience. Patience. You don't have to do it today. Put those things off till tomorrow. They can be put off till tomorrow. And I'm not talking about procrastination here. I'm simply talking about in making wise decisions, you must have the right information. Try to get the best information you can. One of the ways is learning how to ask good questions. What I've discovered in life is simply, if you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get the wrong answers. It doesn't mean that they didn't tell you the truth. It just simply means it's irrelevant to what the decision you are facing, what you need to decide. So learn to ask good questions, how I can obtain the information I need. Let's bring me to the seventh point. The seventh point is contemplate the consequences. In other words, learn to think of tomorrow. What is going to happen? What is the chain reaction that might take place if I make this decision? Because everything is interconnected. When I make a decision, there's going to be certain consequences that come because of that decision. I need to, what we call, think it through. What's going to happen when I make this decision? What's the chain of events that's going to take place? And one of the ways that we do this is simply learn to use your imagination, use your intellect, your mind in the decision-making process. So many people make decisions, it's obvious. They were not thinking what was going to happen when they made that decision, because it made a bad situation a worse situation. It turned a fire into a bomb. It exploded on them. That is not wisdom. That is not wisdom at all. So learn to use your mind. Think it through. What are the consequences of making this choice? What is going to happen? By thinking through the consequences, it helps us to avoid a whole lot of trouble. So many times we make emotional decisions, irrational decisions, or somebody is upset, and so we make the wrong decision, and then we reap the consequences of that. Let me give you the eighth thing for a rule of making good decisions, winning decisions. Take calculated risk. In other words, you cannot live life without taking some risk. I mean, just getting out of bed means you might stumble and fall. Just driving to town. You remember the story of the man that moved because he discovered 25% of all people, that about 75% of all people died within 25 miles of where they lived. And so he moves to another location. The problem is he's now moved home. You're going to have to take some risk in life. Don't allow your expectations, though, to exceed the practical potential and reality of the resources. What is going to be the benefit of doing this? Don't take these foolish chances. There are chances that have to be taken. There are things that are risks that are involved, but don't take unnecessary risk. By doing so, you're setting yourself up for a big hurt in your life. Now, when you make a decision, you hope for the best possible outcome. But at the same time, you must be prepared for a loss. There are things that you can lose in this decision. In fact, that is true in almost all decisions. It's impossible for us to do two things at the same time, to be in two places at the same time. You have to make choices. So make wise choices based upon good information. Never forget that. The decision that you make is based upon the information that you have, and your decision is no better than the information on which it was based. Now, let me give you the ninth thing. The ninth thing I see here is what I would say: become cost effective with time. Cost effective. Time is always a factor that's involved in everything that we do, just like resources. energy. These are things that are involved in every day. We cannot get away from the time factor. And the truth is, if the return is not greater than the investment, then the endeavor is not worth our time. We're wasting our time spending too much time on trivia, on things that really don't make a difference, things that don't count. We're involved in these kind of things. We're wasting our life. We're wasting our time. Learn to be cost effective with time. See, you've got to understand, our most important commodity in life is time. Time is a resource that's being rapidly used. We can never reclaim it. We just got to invest it in a wise way for good returns. For instance, in Psalm 103, the psalmist talks about this. He says, this is verse 15 and 16, Psalm 103. As for man, his days are like grass, as the flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place remembers it no more. He's talking about life, how fleeting life is, how quickly life goes by. One of my heroes in life was Billy Graham, and they asked Billy Graham when he was about 96 years of age, what was the thing that had surprised him most about life? And this was Billy Graham's response: the brevity of it. Now, here's a man that's lived 96 years, and yet he's saying, the thing that surprised me the most was how quickly life is gone. And so what we've got to learn that time is a factor. It is crucial that we use it wisely, because we can never bring it back and do it again. Once it is gone, it is gone. So become cost effective with your time. Now, the 10th rule that I will give you in making winning decisions is learn to survive to thrive. Now, that is a good jingle in English. Survive to thrive, but it simply means keep a positive outlook on life. No matter what takes place in this decision, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be here. We're going to continue life. This is not the end of the journey. Now, what we need to do is learn to think in percentages. For instance, when you make a decision, allow for a 10% chance that you are wrong. Oh, we don't like to think that, but that's right. Sometimes, even with the best of advice, we don't make the best of decisions. Learn to accept that. That's a part of life. A part of life is allow for a 10% chance you might be wrong. Here's another one. Allow for a 50% chance the likelihood of betrayal. Now that one always hurts deeply. And it comes because of these blind spots, people that we think are our friends that many times they're not friends, they're just associates. They're just somebody that's near to us, but they're not committed to us. And it's easy for us to think that they are our friend, that they love us because we love them. So we think they're like us. You need to learn there's a 50% chance of betrayal. Even Jesus had his Judas, and you and I will as well. It happens in life. Oh, but allow for a 100% commitment to survive. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'll be back next week. I'll be back next month. That's the way you've got to think. When I make this decision, it's not the end of my life. No, it's an important decision. I'm doing the best I can. But this is not the end of my life. And so I'm allowing for a 100% chance of survival. In other words, keep watching the road, keep your eyes on the road, but don't forget to check your rear view mirrors. Now, in closing, let me talk for just a moment about mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. What about mistakes? Everybody makes them. In fact, not to make a mistake is a mistake because you have done nothing. So everybody is going to make mistakes in life. It's just a part of the decision-making process. Here's what we need to do. Learn to use our setbacks where it didn't turn out the way we thought it was going to. Learn to use that as a setup for future success. My father-in-law, who was a very godly man, a great man, taught me this principle. I remember so many times we would be working on some project and it didn't go the way we wanted, and he would say, let's just chalk that one up for an education. In other words, we discovered something that does not work. Now that's what we're talking about. What you've got to do is be very careful here, very careful of what's called the drug of depression. It's easy for us to allow our disappointments in life to turn into depression, and we begin to think negative thoughts. That is a mistake, friend. Avoid that. Avoid the drug of depression. Avoid the drunken stupor of denial. If it's not working, it's not working. We will do the best we can to rectify this situation, to improve it, to do better, but it's not the end of our life. So use your setbacks as a setup for progress into the future. Keep a positive attitude, the attitude of faith. Keep your faith in God. That's right. Keep your eyes on the road, but don't forget to check the rearview mirrors. If you'll do these things, you'll learn how to make wise decisions and learn to live life at its maximum, living life in full throttle.